Okay, this is a kind of a long video, so I don't know if I'll get through it all. I was up all night last night. I took one little nap, or a couple little half naps, of about a couple hours total. I like to do that sometimes. What I was doing last night was running this tool called lint, and it's just a little nitpicky kind of tool to advise on code style and things that you want to avoid. If you choose your project should have its own philosophy and rules and whatnot for consistency. But there was like over 1,000 of these items, and it could fix some of them, but I still had like 300 of them. And around 10, I'm like, well, I'm just going to finish it. And I thought that'd be two, but it was more like 4 or 5. And at that point, I figured, well, I don't want to go to sleep and get up and do the other little thing I have to do. So I started working on that. Around 10, my brain started to crash a little. It's funny in the wee hours, from you know even midnight to 6, my mind is uh, sharper than normal at night. So anyway, but it does sort of affect your. So I thought I would watch this video live. I watched a little bit of it and then I rewound it because I realized I didn't want to do another one to take notes. I think that taking notes has a problem. It should be more measured. It is more measured, maybe, but you can also miss more. And I'm taking this from the point of view of I think our views are compatible. Your view that we're helping a brother out and trying to show them where they're making a mistake, that since they take these subjects seriously, then the mistake is serious to whatever degree, something we're taking seriously. And I acknowledge I'm saying it is serious, but I'm putting it that way because it's because we take it seriously. It's not like immediate life or death. It's like that gravity metaphor I was using. But consistency is especially important, and we could say, hey, you could be more consistent. And I think that's compatible with what I'm saying, which is if we just share information, people will be more well informed, um, probably about the facts, but at least about where everybody else is coming from and their version of the facts and their mistakes and everything, more well informed. And it comes to the same thing. But it does go both ways if we're using your model right. You can't just explain to me what you mean by circular when I have a philosophy degree. I mean, I know what is meant by that. My disagreements with how that stuff is set up are with knowledge of how it's set up. Um, I didn't see this far in the video, but I saw your drawing as like axioms are assumed. So I guess you're going to work to that part. Yeah, that doesn't mean that's okay. It's a problem we've had for thousands of years is that the axioms, they thought, well, we'll prove them. And the mathematicians thought, we'll prove these axioms. It'll turn out the axioms are self-proving somehow. And then Gödel proved, nope, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. That's what that was about. The axioms are just assumed. Yeah, they're assumed because we have to. I consider that a problem. I think it'd be better to actually find a self-evident truth. And I think I found one self-evident truth. And with one self-evident truth, other evident truths can follow. But all right, shouldn't get ahead of myself. So let's go.
Alrighty then. Okay, first of all, I'll deal on the left-hand side here. Um, Purposes. Well, it's an interesting discussion, and it's brought up some points um, and interesting ideas and things I want to deal with. This is a non-technical discussion, so you'll find me, like most people, using metaphors and speaking loosely. So when I'm making a video, just trying to give a feel for how things feel to me, the way I look at is more the way I look at things, and very much often, as I said, it's kind of a backward-looking retrospective view because, well, because it is. I'm here talking about how I act in the past and I perceive myself to act in the past, and then I kind of think of it as looking at it as being helpful. At the time, I did. It isn't so much as a conscious perception of being helpful, uh, being preachy or condescending. The point is that I work under the assumption that I want help, yeah, in certain situations when I ask for it, and when I'm engaging in dialogue, um, in technical dialogue, in argumentation, that a feature of the argumentation is that I don't want to be wrong. So
I'm sorry, I don't know that that was a good pausing point, but I challenge you on this. I think that sometimes you have thought I was condescending because I was trying to offer help to you, right? Um, I complimented you on your advancement, and you're like, "Oh, who are you to judge?" So I think there's just a natural sensitivity, and you're not the only one. And I naturally have that sensitivity too, but I think I pretty much overcame it.
therefore, we're helping each other, and I take it as a reasonable assumption that you don't want to be wrong and you want to have the holes found in your argument. So, um, so
Well, I think that depends a lot on what you mean by want to be wrong. I'm not trying to be wrong. That's not the goal, but I want to find out that I'm wrong. One of the best moments I've used this on YouTube, Kazuna Mukul, best YouTube philosopher ever, convinced me of something that I'd had a totally different opposite idea of, and that was just that pi is just as solid and ordinary a number. I was like, it takes an infinite number of digits to write it, and he was like, that's just math's fault. It's as much a number as the number two or anything else, and you can write it with one digit. It's that pi symbol, and I think that counts. And it changed my view of what the patterns that are used to identify math, this ratio between this square and a circle. Um, it doesn't matter about your base. So if we don't have a base that can represent it, so what? As a matter of fact, you can have base pi and then, uh, you know, factors and formula with pi do have finite digits, and it's the regular numbers that have infinite digits. So I was very excited to find that out. Um, I have always been excited to find that kind of thing out. I don't like being wrong in work, but if my colleagues are all cool about that, I don't actually mind. We can all learn together and go, ah, and I have to go out of my way to ask people. And when people are sensitive, I just make clear this isn't about you know the thing. You've got to tell me. And then you've got to listen to me because actually I'm telling you something about it too. And that's a matter of practicality of getting things done. In general, um, I could just agree with you. Yeah, I think we're here to find out those things. But you don't even think I'm understanding determinism. Like I don't get where it comes from, right? You think I'm stuck on understanding what a circular argument is in a logical sense, and I'm not. I have different views on those things, and then I'm trying to point out the problems with those things, and you're not hearing those problems as far as I can tell because you just think I'm babbling because I don't understand what is meant by circular. So I'm trying to clarify your thinking, at least to admit what you've heard from me and understand my position because I think this and frankly, Gary takes it as well, a lot of people do, that you don't understand it because it's not understandable. Um, like it's nonsense, so you just got to tell me something. And I know for a fact that I'm not, for you to tell me something about my ideas, you have to be able to express them in a way I can recognize. Right? I think I can express your ideas in a way you recognize. For example, when I said um, that your idea of determinism can be thought of as having one state transition another state, right? You could even just have it a continuous transitional thing if you wanted, but it's one to the next one. And it's possible, like in quantum mechanics, that there's multiple states that can arrive at the transition moment and multiple outputs. And those are all kind of involved in every transition. And I'm sure there's many other ways of thinking about it, and we could probably create an infinite number of, novel, possibly contrived ways of thinking about that sort of thing, and I identified yours, and you said, yeah, that is really what I've identified something we can discuss and what we disagree about. That's the interesting part to me, is for us to whittle it down of what are we really disagreeing about. And that's one way of wrapping our uh, difference in a nutshell or whatever. I think we're theorizing about what a mechanical universe is like. We're theorizing about that. That's what we're discussing and arguing about. We're not starting from that and then arguing about that. We're starting from somewhere else. You have to start from these axioms. To feel good about that, you want to call them a priori. You want to say they're somehow, they prove themselves. They just have to be taken. We have to assume them. That's what it seems like to me. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. The third person perspective, like the way you put it, is bound to start from those axioms. I start from this data set. I'm a I'm a data processor. I reduce data. This is the data. This is the first step of the data. Then I could take, for example, I could say, well, all of the pictures of me in the summertime, and I could make another little mini film strip with just those. Then I could make theories about other times I enjoyed. I can make little film strips that relate. Why are those, why was jet ski, why was snowmobiling fun and lying on the beach? Those seem different, and yet I felt a similar kind of contentment. And I'm not saying the particular is true. I'm just saying a person then can make all these little millions of bits of film strip clipped frame by frame, put back together. And that's how you even get something like the unicorn, which is obviously made of things we have seen: horns, horses, ponies.
You contrast the observations I make about potential condescension with potential condescension of helping. And yes, of course, there is. In fact, I do get charged with condescension, um,
We all do.
but to my mind, it's a legitimate charge insofar as I don't engage people except where they seem to be up for debate. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's why you're one of my favorite people to converse with on these tubes. But you should probably understand that I think the same of myself. People call me condescending because I think I am right and whatnot. But I think I pay close attention to other people's ideas, and I figure out things about what they're saying and trying to say. And I spend a lot of time trying to reword things in my understanding and seeing if the person whose idea it is can accept those words and ideas, um, because that's the closest you can get to understanding somebody else is, I think, to be able to reproduce it in a way they recognize.
If they find my refutations condescending, well, that would be their problem. And my engagement with them, that would be their problem in this paradigm I have.
And the same for me, so that's probably why it's not really worth spending too much time on, right? Because it's the same for me. It's like, well, that's your problem. But I don't actually feel like, oh, well, just that's your problem is the end of it. I think it's also an interesting topic.
Because I think, I mean, that anybody who is big boy enough to engage in argument is big boy enough to hear the answers, and that it was kind of the answer to what you expressed. Do I not worry sometimes about whether somebody can, handle the idea that there's no free will? And I do sometimes worry, but I work generally on this overriding principle.
I didn't know you'd noticed that point, because I think that's an important point, and I know it brings us away from this purely scientific thing, but it's sort of the point that we all are living in our first person perspectives, and how dangerous is it to not exercise your will because it's pointless. Anyway, I didn't know. Anyway, I find that an important part of this topic.
That, you know, people who actually find these things worrisome will disengage and not want to think and go away and not think about them and engage with people who do put these arguments, and they'll dismiss them from the mind and live relatively safely. People who are actually cognizant enough to engage, and even if they're fearful but continue to engage and arrive at your point, have the potential to understand that it's also not as dangerous as it might first appear. So yeah, I help people, an old lady across the road, if it's apparent to me she needs help. But if she's an independent person and says, no, I don't need your help, then I'm happy to back away. Yeah. And sometimes that mistake can be made. Yeah. Sometimes you can get it wrong, but it's the kind of offence in the world which ought to be tolerated. You know, helping people in physical situations.
Well, here's the thing. All the help I want from you is understanding what you think. I don't need help from you directly telling me what to think or helping me think how you think. Because if you make clear to me how you think, you just are as honest and as informative as possible about how you think about these things. And I get an idea of how you think. I mean, I might adopt it. I'm certainly not going to adopt it before I understand it and have absorbed it that well. And that's a long time probably simply enjoying looking at whatever abstractions and mechanisms you have in your own ideas, which I have enjoyed. And some videos popped up of us about 5 years ago, and I remembered what we were arguing about and why I was frustrated. I didn't get frustrated though, because I understand some of it, was complications of conversation that we worked out with some diligence. I do think those topics probably relate to what we're talking about now on this purpose issue. But anyway, go ahead. Oops.
The thing is that I work under the assumption that I want help. Yeah?
Fuck.
In physical situations, you know. So I don't view it really as helping people, but except that that's just kind of a metaphor for that I work under the assumption that if you're arguing, you think yourself right, and you'd like to know that how you're wrong if that's the case. You've put work in to
Yes.
formulate and express an idea that you think is correct, and you'd be like myself, devastated to find out you've been proceeding for many years under some misconception.
No, no. I like the feeling of confusion and coming out of it and having a better idea, because the struggle of life is such that if you're wise about it, you want to have those revelations and those aha moments of, that's the only time they come, and that is the highest intellectual feeling that there is.
So it's not helping in the condescension sense in terms of argumentation. That's my side done with, and your criticism of me. Look,
Well, I did not criticize you directly like you're taking it. What I said was, what I meant to say is I find it funny, and you're not the only one that has this kind of attitude, that somehow the way I put it, as we're all sharing information so we can all become better informed and change our own ideas, that's somehow condescending, because that seems calculated to be, the fairest approach possible. I still, not only do I get to argue for my position, I sort of have to, because that's my being honest about the information. And I just find it, yeah, funny. I'm not criticizing you as seeming condescending. I don't particularly get that. Um, then again, I ignore a lot of that kind of stuff, but I wasn't complaining to you about that. You called me condescending, and I was saying I think it's funny that I don't find you condescending and being Mr. Helpful by telling people how they're wrong and need to change how they think doesn't seem automatically less condescending to me. But you turn that into, like, it's just natural, I guess. You turn that into, oh, I was attacking you for being condescending. No, you brought that up. In my defense of myself, I said this is ironic. I don't find you condescending. I don't find me condescending either, right? So me saying that point doesn't mean you're condescending. If it did mean that, it would mean, oh, maybe we both are. And my point was, no, I don't consider either one of us condescending. I think people that take that uh, just it's general. I'm not saying I could never be condescending in a moment. For example, the hello, 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 that is an emotional moment that you could count against, the condescension. But in general, I do not feel that I'm condescending. Uh, I think that I'm showing interest in people's ideas. And, most people don't show interest in people's ideas. So what more do you want? This is a hobby. We're colleagues. We're as colleagues, and it should be friendly, just like a workplace should be friendly as possible. And okay, so wait a second. It's been 20 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna take a break and do it part two.